Oh crap!
Hey guys, I'm Prodigy from Airsoft Team Kilo 23. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Mechbox. On the last episode of Inside the Mechbox, we started upgrading the Snowwolf M99, better known as the Barrett M82 A1. So far, we've installed a Deepfire 6mm reinforced gearbox, Deepfire 6mm solid metal bushings, and a Cheetah MOSFET by Extreme Fire. Today we'll be installing the ICS version 2 bearing spring guide, a Deepfire full tooth titanium piston, and the Deepfire bore-up cylinder set for the M16. Now, installing these parts is probably the easiest step in actually working on an airsoft gun. These are some of the most basic upgrades you can get, and they're actually very easy to install. First, we can start with the bore-up cylinder set. You're going to have your cylinder head. It's going to have 2 O-rings, so that's pretty nice. And your bore-up nozzle. It's going to have an internal red O-ring because Deepfire is just cool like that. You'll also have the aluminum piston head and the bearings behind it. Now, I like to start by putting a light coat of grease on the inside of the cylinder. Take your finger, just rub it around up in there. It's going to get your finger kind of greasy, but you can always wipe it off. Now you can take your cylinder and cylinder head, go ahead and mesh those together. Make sure the edge here is flush with the end of the cylinder. Now you can go ahead and take your nozzle and put that on the end of the cylinder head. This one isn't moving around at all, it's getting a great air seal. Next, you want to take your tappet plate and install that on the little lip at the end of the nozzle. Your nozzle can actually retract properly and feed the next BB in, so that's always a plus. You want your gun to feed, right? Now, I noticed that the edges of the cylinder section right here were kind of rough, and they needed a little bit of filing down for the bore-up cylinder to fit properly. So I went ahead and took a metal file, filed those down a little bit. The bore-up cylinder fits perfectly in there now. To install this, simply roll it into place and make sure everything aligns. Now, realize this is not the order in which you are supposed to reassemble your gearbox. This is just a step in showing you what to do. You will have to, of course, install your gears here. You will have to remove the tappet plate and cylinder assembly to do that. But we'll cover that in the next episode of Inside the Mechbox. Next, we can assemble the Deepfire titanium full tooth piston. It's going to come in 2 pieces, the teeth and the piston itself. Go ahead and insert your teeth and make sure everything is smooth and aligned. With the teeth installed on the piston, you can take your piston head, set that on the end. Now, it's not going to stay in place, it's going to rock around a little bit. That's why you have bearings here and they screw into the back of the piston up inside of it. Now, I really recommend you have a magnetic screwdriver to do this. It makes it a lot easier to insert your bearing assembly into the back of the piston and screw it into place until it tightens. Now, you want to make sure this piston head is on pretty tight. If it's loose at all, it will unscrew and it can cause damage to your gun. You will want to lubricate the O-ring on this a little bit. Spray a little bit of grease on here. Just take your fingers and rub it around. It doesn't have to be too much. Too much will just make a mess. You can see this assembly gets a great air seal. When it bounces back like this, it's perfect. There are no problems with it at all. Installing your piston is pretty easy. Simply slide it into place and make sure it's on the rails. Now, you will want to lubricate the piston rails just a bit. Just keep in mind, too much grease just makes a mess. Now, you want to do this to both sides of the gearbox. Doing it to one is just kind of pointless. Now, when you're reassembling your gun for the final time, you won't want to forget your tappet plate spring. That's this little guy. Simply stick it on the hook on the tappet plate. Take some needle nose pliers and connect it to the little pin right there. This way your nozzle will automatically spring forward after every cycle. The final item we're going to break out today is the ICS Bearing version 2 spring guide, and that's this guy. Now, this guy is going to sit right here, but we're not going to install that right now. We're just going to leave it sitting there. Now, it's always good to have a bearing spring guide, even if it is on extremely high-powered setups. Bearings can pop out with high-powered setups, but it does make everything a little easier to pull back on the gears and on the motor. Now, on the next episode of Inside the Mechbox, we'll be installing the Deepfire M170 spring and the Systema Torque Up helical gear set. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Prodigy from Airsoft Team Kilo 23. Stay tuned for the next episode of Inside the Mechbox.